Okay, today I'm supposed to complete the Colossians series, and it's supposed to deal with chapter 3 and 4. And chapter 3, actually I prepared a full message, I wonder I maybe need 1.5 hours to finish. But today I'm going to change the order of the message in view of the current situation in Singapore. Last Sunday night, I'm sure we all have followed the Prime Minister's speech, and he had particularly mentioned about the repealing of Section 377A. I believe that this is something that we are deeply concerned. It involves all the families, whether your grandmothers, your mothers, or your children. I think we are all involved, because the children one day will become parents, and parents will give birth to children. Then the children grow up and you become grandmother, So we all cannot run away from it. Actually, I've been keeping kind of quiet until what the Prime Minister has said. I think he has publicly made that statement, and so we know that it is going to come true, right? And today, actually, it's kind of in line with my message. I have prepared a long message, I'll skip the front part, and then I come to point 3. Point 3 actually talks about the family. I have a functioning family. And 377A has to do with a functioning family. And here Paul says this. Point 3 says, "Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged." I'm sure that when Paul talks about the functioning family, now obviously in chapter 3 to 4, there are different kinds of a relationship. Besides this, which I'm not going to touch, talk about employer-employee relationship. And how are we going to relate with one another in mind? Right? These are all there. But I'm going to zero in on this family first before I deal with the last part. Now, in the original, when Paul wrote these verses, I'm sure the fathers there is in the masculine form, and the wives is in the feminine form. They cannot be from the same form, because in Greek, they have at least 3 forms: masculine, feminine, and neuter. So when you, let's say, describe the Bible, they use a neuter form, like a thing. But when you say father, son, it will be in the masculine form. When you talk about a lady, wives, it will be in the feminine form. So the Bible is very clear. There's no doubt. There's no father in the feminine form, mother in the feminine form, father in the masculine form, mother also in the masculine form. So actually, when the Bible is very clear cut. And all the way from Genesis until the New Testament time, God is very clear about the family structure. Like God is also very clear about homosexual act. Right? I think in the records in Sodom and Gomorrah, and also in the book of Judges, right, at the end, when you see how the people became so depraved, they were outright, right? They outright wanted to sodomize men. Now, the Bible is very, very clear-cut about that. And there's no doubt about it. And the church stand is, the church preaches the Bible. And the Bible is against homosexuality. But the Bible is not against a gay person. The Bible is not against a LGBTQ plus minus or whatsoever. We love them, right? We don't condone the act, but we love the sinners. And that must be very clear. And who knows? Maybe some of us, some listeners who are listening now, they belong to this group. Like, we are not against you. We are only against the act that the Bible very, very explicitly teaches. And that is against homosexual acts. And so now with this the imminent repealing of 377A, how do we move forward? Then what's next? Now, if we follow the law minister's explanation, he has given interview. He has given a few interviews. And if you have heard the Prime Minister, who very explicitly say, they have the votes in Parliament to repeal the law. There's no doubt about it. The whip will not be lifted, meaning to say that the ruling party have the absolute majority to repeal this law. They no need to change. No matter who says no use, there may be some debate, but it is as good as it's a done deal already. Then what next? Now the government has given this explanation, and allow me to share this. Now I'm not, I'm neutral. Okay. If you ask me personally, do I agree that 377A be repealed? My answer will be very straightforward. No. But unfortunately, I'm not the government. Right? So, but the government has its purpose. They say that if they do nothing, then it may come a point whereby they will not be able to stand from the challenges of the activists before the court. The easy path, they have said that if they do nothing, leave it to the court, leave it for the future generation to make a decision. Then somebody else will carry the bag. Or the judge will be blamed. Because when someone brings this up and appeal it in court, in fact, up to this point, the judges have been in a very difficult position, I believe. Right? They try to play Tai Chi, actually. Right? So they did not say too much. But they are also hinting that with Section 12 of the Constitution, Section 12 of the Constitution, it deals with equal right. Means everybody, every Singaporean has equal rights before the law. Equal right means they have equal right to do many things. Equal right to have this, to have our own religion, etc., etc. Right? Equal right to choose our partners. And they are also concerned that in the future, not now, the activists may take another step forward and challenge the one man, one woman marriage structure in court. And quoting chapter 12, section 12, right, of the Constitution. Now, if by that time, when it comes to that, we really don't know how the judges will rule. Now, we must remember that the judges will only rule based on what is prescribed to them. The prescription to them is that they have the law, the Constitution, and they apply the law. They don't make their own law. They take what has given to them, and they interpret it, and they apply it, and then they pass judgment. So we don't know. So the government is preempting that if they don't do nothing, actually it's good for them. They don't, maybe people will not be angry with them. Maybe they get better votes, right? But they are saying that they still have to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing. So I think we respect them, and I like to believe them, that they really want to do the right thing. What happens if 377A is not repealed? Well, if let's say 377 is not repealed, very likely the government will also not amend the Constitution. When the government says that they amend the Constitution about marriage, no, they are not amending the Constitution about the marriage structure. They are amending the Constitution to give Parliament the right to define what marriage is. So there's two different things. They are not enshrining the marriage structure, one man, one woman, into the Constitution. They are saying we will amend the Constitution to give Parliament the right to define what marriage is. Now, in short, the government is also very smart. I think they are, rightly so. They should be, otherwise we are all in trouble. They are reserving, it can move both ways. Right now, the government is still based on what they said. They will keep the family structure. They keep the law pertaining to education, to social structure, adoption, housing policy, women's charter, everything remains the same. And in fact, if they amend the Constitution and Parliament has the right to define what marriage is, then all this will be protected. Up to now, it is not. It is not. If it is not repealed and they are not amending the Constitution, it is not. In fact, the activists can go and challenge. So by amending, actually, they are taking a step forward, but at the same time, they are also reserving the right in the future, in the event that 10 years, 20 years down the road, the whole political structure, the whole social outlook about marriage, about this and that changes. You must remember, a government is there to win votes. Although they want to uphold morality, they are not there just to advocate a certain religious position. Never. Their concern is they have enough vote to govern the country. So they are wise in the sense that they want to give themselves some leeway. And they also said this very openly. Right? Shanmugam has said this. He said, if we all don't want anything to change in the future, when we elect the MPs, you ask them for their manifesto. Right? If an MP comes to your house and asks you, please vote for me, then you ask him, you support one man, one woman, or two men, two women? You ask the MP. If the MP says, oh yeah, I support that, then you know how to vote. In short, this is what they are saying. Right? They have to make it very, very difficult in the future for Parliament to change the definition. For them to change, they must gain at least a majority in Parliament, failing which they cannot. But if they enshrine the marriage structure or this definition of one man, one woman into the Constitution, then it will require a 75% vote of the Parliament in order to amend Constitution. So I understand this is it. So when you look at this, for us as a church, what can we do? We have been praying. Many church groups, many Christian, in fact, whether it's the APCCS, the Presbyterian group, the Catholics, even the NCCS, every of this Christian group has put up statement. And everyone is not for. And they have also provided their feedbacks, their outlook. And I must say this, and then the government has submitted this, that beside the Christian group, actually the other religious group and conservative groups have also given their view, and the government has taken all this view, and after that, they consider it, think through very seriously, they come to this conclusion. And they are not taking this decision lightly. I believe so. I like to believe that if they can, they rather not do it. But they cannot. They have to do it. So I think in this, in the future, what does it mean? Well, actually, if they amend the Constitution and give Parliament the right to protect family structure, and based on what they say, education policy, social policy, housing policy, adoption policy, workplace, and also some of these things, it will be protected. In fact, it will be interpreted based on one man, one woman, not two men or two women. So in that sense, actually, it's better off than the current position. Right? Unless in the future, Parliament changes. This is another story. I think that it depends on the future generation. How do we educate our children, our grandchildren, and what is their outlook in life? But in the meantime, I think it will be better off. Now we come back. Then what can the church do next? Since we cannot stop the repealing of this act, it's already like a done deal, I can tell you. Right? So what can the church do next? And I believe that the church must ring-fence ourselves. We ring-fence ourselves. How do we ring-fence ourselves? Well, the government has assured that religious groups will have the freedom to preach, to teach the Bible without fear. That means we don't have to fear that we preach against homosexualism and then someone will throw stone at us. We don't have to worry. And the authority will neither take action because this is guaranteed in the religious right. So we have the right to preach. So we just need to continue to preach what the Bible teaches. Secondly, our youth group, I think we have to educate our youth and make them aware what is coming, and do not let the influencers, etc., cloud their thinking, cloud their outlook, and also our KOTR, our pebbles, and that the curriculum and our teaching, that we must reinforce this idea about family values, family structure, that in the family, father is always a man, mother is always the one who wears skirt. you know, and so that the child will know from young that this is the family structure. And so we have a good foundation and we protect our children, we protect our young people, then it will be, they will have the resilience, they will have the strength to withstand the influence outside. This is the best thing we can do, right? Because this activism, and together with the religious position, it can actually bring a place, to become very contentious, right? It can tear society apart. Now, I'm sure that this is not what we want. Now, we are not saying this to say that, therefore we all agree and praise the repealing of 377A. No, right? If we have a choice, we say no. Right? You ask me to vote, I will say no. Right? But life is like that. Right? Life is like that. So I hope that with that, we will know that moving on, we ring-fence ourselves, and then we educate our children, our young people, and also the congregation about what family structure is all about. And then we move on from there. And then we pray. And we pray that we'll continue to hold fast. We pray to continue to hold fast. And sometimes I think we have to pray that the church itself, that means whether the church or the religious group itself, do not have a crack in between. Because if you look at the other countries, it's actually within themselves, they have cracks. And then when their position started to shift, then everything collapses. Right? So it is important that we stand firm and we understand what the Bible teaches and we preach without apology. Like we don't have to apologize. And the government has guaranteed that there is no such thing as a cancel culture. That when you preach, someone in school, they will cancel you out. In society, they'll cancel you out. In workplace, they will cancel you out. In fact, when Pelosi, right, the Speaker of Congress came, she met the LGBT group and she advocated and asked this multinational company to what? To promote their agenda. And they have this Pride Day. The Pride Day, you wear a certain color. And then the employees are actually pressurized to wear that color. If you don't wear that color, maybe it affect your promotion, it may affect your future. So the government is also making it very clear that they will counsel those organizations so that it will be a neutral ground, that nobody will use their position, whether as employer, etc., to pressurize the workers. I think if you look at that, you ask me, I think it's good. I think it's better than what it is now. Is it not true? So I think all is not lost. I think all we need is, remember the same word, ring-fence ourselves. The Bible is very clear about the family structure. Right? Father, wife, submit to husband. Therefore, when people look at our family, they look at the Christian family, can they see such value that the wife submits to the husband and the husband loves the wife? And here it says that the husband do not what? Do not be harsh to the wife. Sometimes husband can be harsh to the wife. Right? And children, obey your parents. And he told the parents, fathers, do not embitter your children. Why father embitter children? Because sometimes fathers, fathers are hot, men. We are short-tempered, easily angered, and so sometimes we can embitter our children. And the Bible here, Paul advises us very clearly. Father, don't embitter your children. See, if the Christian family unit is a model unit, and it will become a testimony. When people look at the church, they look at the Christian families in the church, then they will be encouraged, right? They will know that this is the model, that this is something that they desire. It's only when things break down, then people say, no, I want to change. I want something different, right? So let's heed what Paul says, and then we move on. Right? Continue to pray for our country, continue to pray for our leaders, continue to pray for the church, pray for the leaders in the church also, so that we all know what to do, and that we will do the right thing that will please the Lord. Right? Amen. Okay, so I'm going to move on to point number 6. Right? Point number 6 is work as a team. Interestingly, when you read the book of Colossians, you read the book of Romans and some other epistles, Paul always mentions some names at the end of the epistles. And oftentimes we kind of don't take note. No, we do not really pay too much attention on those people. So this afternoon, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce some of them. And then you see who they are, who they were, and how can we perhaps even learn from them. And why Paul was blessed, because as a minister, he does not minister in what you call solo. He doesn't fly solo. He needs a team of people who stand beside him. And that's why Paul was successful. Like, Paul was not a lone ranger who fight the Christian agenda or his war, alone. No. He had a good team of men and women supporting him. And they are co-laboring together. And who were they? Okay, this afternoon, let's look at them. The first person I want to introduce to you his name is called Tychicus. Tychicus is found in Colossians 4, verses 7 and 8. Verse 7 says this: Tychicus will tell you all the news about me. He is a dear brother, a faithful minister, and a fellow servant in the Lord. I am sending him to you for the express purpose that you may know about your circumstances, and that he may encourage your hearts. So who was Tychicus? Now, Paul described him as a man with a servant's heart. A man with a servant's heart. Now, you see, a leader is not a tyrant. A leader is a servant. But remember, while a leader is a servant, the leader is not the doormat. Okay? Sometimes they treat leader as doormat. You're a servant, you be servant, so it's servant. So they step on them, they call doormat. But a leader is neither a doormat or a tyrant. Right? But a leader with a servant heart. It's the difference between a servant heart, and being a doormat. So Tychicus was a man with a servant heart, a heart that serves. And his name also means fortunate. Fortunate. Now, fortunate, I believe, has both meanings. Fortunate to Paul, because Paul had Tychicus, with him. And it is also fortunate for Tychicus himself because of his association with Paul. And Paul described him as a faithful minister. Who is faithful minister? Meaning to say that he can be relied on. That when you pass this man an assignment, a job, a ministry, you can count on him. I don't know, you all watch cinema show. Chinese cinema got one actor called Yuan Biao. His famous word, 我办事，你放心. Okay, that is 口头禅. When I'm doing the work, you can be assured. You can be assured. No, he was a faithful minister, meaning to say that Paul can entrust to him tasks and jobs, assignment, and he can be counted as done. A faithful minister. I think these are qualities, good qualities that this man had. Now, Tychicus never attained great prominence. Never. He was just an ordinary person. But always carry out what was given to him. See, some of us may not have prominence. Not everybody has a chance to stand in front of this pulpit and talk a lot. Right? Like me. Right? So I talk a lot, then you all fall asleep. Not everybody got this chance. Not everybody can lead the worship, like Brother Kenneth. Right? Not everybody can play the keyboard, or like JJ or whosoever. We may not be prominent in the forefront, but in the ministry, we need backstage or people behind the scene. Some describe the people in front as the tip of the spear. But a spear with a head without a shaft is no use. A spear needs a shaft. Then that spear is effective. The shafts are who? The shafts are the people behind the scene. So the people behind the scene are just as important as the spear tip. Right? You can have the spear tip and no shaft. No use. So he was such a man. And Paul called him a dear brother. a dear brother. Now, see, such are the quality, and I hope that we can learn from this man like Tychicus and be a dear brother or sister to the people whom we serve alongside. Second person that I'm going to introduce to you is 4:9. His name is Onesimus. Who is Onesimus? Very interesting. I did not classify them in the morning. Actually, my Chinese message is also on Colossians, but I classify them, But I don't know why I do English, I didn't classify them. He is one of those who at one upon a time did something wrong. Onesimus. Right? Verse 9 says this. He is coming with Onesimus, our faithful and dear brother. Now, Paul called him faithful and dear brother, who is one of you. Now, he's writing to the Colossian Christian. And Onesimus came from Colossae. They will tell you everything that is happening here. Now, coming back, who was Onesimus? Now, Onesimus has a sinful past. If you read the book of Philemon, right? Paul actually told Philemon to forgive Onesimus, because Onesimus stole from Philemon, and then he ran away and all the way to Rome. So he was running away from his master and went to Rome. In Rome, he met Paul for whatever reason. And then, because he attended the happiness group, so he accepted Christ. Amen. The story didn't end there. When Paul wrote to Philemon, Paul actually used all his persuasive skill. And he also wanted to make Philemon feel a bit guilty. He also reminded Philemon, you are who you are. It's also because long time ago, you also attended my HG group. Because both of them were Paul's best. Paul's best that turned, he accepted Christ. And in short, Paul was telling Philemon, remember, you owe me a debt. You owe me a what you call, not political debt, huh? You owe me a Christian debt. And now, please forgive. If for whatever reason, what you have received, the grace you have received from the Lord, you extend it to to Onesimus. That's what the book of Philemon is all about. So Onesimus was a man with a past. But then because he came into contact with Paul, and Paul converted him, and then what happened? Paul called him what? Faithful. Right? A faithful person. He ran away. And now he became a beloved brother and not a runaway slave anymore. Now, I think this is important, that what we can learn. Sometimes we look at people, we always look at their past, right? And then if they have a record, if they have this or that, somehow we like it or don't, I like it or not. I think human beings, we like to cast question marks, right? When we cast question mark, we will have other things will follow. But Onesimus was such a man with a past. But how the Lord has turned him around, and then how God used this man in such a way that Paul described him as a faithful and beloved brother. Right? Faithful servant, beloved brother. Well, we have another character in 4:10. It's called Aristarchus. Aristarchus in Colossians 4:10a says this. My fellow prisoner, Aristarchus, sends you his greeting. Paul called him fellow prisoner. Very interesting. This guy, interesting. I like to have a friend like this. You know why? He was a man with a sympathetic heart. He was with Paul in times of crisis. He committed no crime. No, mind you, he committed no crime. But then he joined Paul in prison. Means he keep prison, no? He told Paul, and you in prison, I join you. He's such a man. That's why Paul said, my fellow prisoner. Not that he committed a crime, he was thrown in prison. No, it wasn't. He simply joined Paul. It's like saying, Paul, where you are, I am. Just like what Ruth told Naomi. I will go where you go. I will die where you die. I will be buried where you will be buried. Very touching, right? You want a marriage vow? That one is a good one. Okay? That one is a good one. So you look at Ruth, the commitment. Ruth need not go back to Bethlehem. If she remained in Moab, she would have better chances of finding a husband. She returned with Naomi to Bethlehem. The Jews very likely will reject her. In fact, it was proven. The first kinsman, when he heard that, oh, you redeem Elimelech's property, you must also marry this Moabite. Straight away he said, my. Oh, Boaz 彈掉咯. Boaz waiting for him to say my. So Boaz married. Why? We see the thinking, the culture. So you see, for this man, Aristarchus, he need not be in prison, but he chose to be in prison, just to support Paul. You know how touching it is? You know, sometimes when you are in a crisis, when you know that everybody might have deserted you, and here comes this guy, he's smart, you know, then he say, I'll be with you, you know. Where you go, I'll go. Wonderful co-worker, right? And he just hung around with this prisoner called Paul. And by the way, you have not heard him talk about, he lead a song, take a worship service, lead Bible study, whatsoever. No, nothing. He just hung around. Not bad, right? So sometimes we may not be great performers, right? We may not be able to do a lot of things, but we can be burden bearers, right? We can be people who really share the burden of someone else. And Aristarchus was such a man. Next, we have this guy, interesting character, called Mark. Mark, we all know him. In Colossians 4:10b says this. He says, as does Mark, the cousins of Barnabas, you have received instruction about him. If he comes to you, welcome him. Now, who was Mark? Well, we all know that Mark was a cousin of Barnabas. And who was Barnabas? Barnabas first appeared in the book of Acts when his name means encourager. And then he was the one with, he know how to select good MPs. He see a man, he know that, wow, this one can make it. Everybody was afraid of Paul because Paul was persecuting the church, and then, he was involved in killing of this Stephen, right? And when later on the road of Damascus, he accepted Christ. And then when he accepted Christ, he preached Christ. Now, all the disciples, apostles, they were all skeptical. They were not sure whether this Paul, is he a spy? Is he a two-faced man, So while he preached Christ, they had reservation. So Barnabas actually recommended Paul to the Jerusalem council. And then they recognized, they accepted Paul based on the recommendation of Barnabas. And then they lay hand on the both of them, and they sent them out on the first missionary trip. Now, on that trip, Barnabas brought along this young man, his cousin called Mark, John Mark. And John Mark in Acts is recorded that halfway through the missionary journey, he, for whatever reason, the Bible was silent, but there are some speculation about his reason. But this is not a platform to say all that, okay? Just in short, he ran away. He decided to abandon the mission trip. He took the next plane home. So he departed. And obviously Saul wasn't really excited at all. So came the next trip. During the second missionary trip, when they discussed between Paul and Barnabas to mount the trip, and Barnabas said, we will bring Mark along. Now Paul really become Saul again. He was very sore. He refused. He said, over my dead body, if you want to bring Mark, then we part ways. So they parted ways, right? And now one went on this direction, the other one went to the other direction. But then you see, Barnabas is a man with a very sharp eye and had good discernment. While Paul was upset, Paul thought that Barnabas will never, and Mark will never make it. Barnabas saw it differently. And Barnabas later was proven right. Why? Because here in Colossae, Paul now recommends Mark. Not only here, Actually, in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11, it is recorded this way. Get Mark and bring him with you, because he is helpful to me in my ministry. These are the words of the Apostle Paul while he was in another prison now. Another prison term. So you see how God has turned this young man. And he's a man with a second chance. Right? A man with a second chance. Just like Onesimus. Here is a man with a second chance. Sometimes we can start off very enthusiastically. But then somehow along the way, we may blow it. We blow it. So what? Are there people like us in our midst? So if we meet such people, then how? Do we condemn them? Do we not give them a chance anymore? See, it's very easy for us to take a position. And then sometimes when we take a position, we sounded very righteous, Very righteous, In the Christian ministry, I've seen leaders who take position, because of someone has fallen. The way they take the position is like they never will ever commit the same mistake or same sin. Wow, they talk very with gusto, with 110% conviction, until one day they themselves fall into the same trap. You see, this is life. But I think we should be more charitable, right? God give Mark a second chance, and Mark make it good. So do not look at people and then we condemn them forever. Okay, then we have another guy called Justus. But his front name is called Jesus. Jesus Justus. Now in verse 11 it says this. Jesus, now this Jesus is different from the other Jesus, by the way. Jesus, who is called Justus, also sends greeting. These are the only Jews among my fellow workers for the kingdom of God. And they have proved a comfort to me. Now someone said this, you have a co-worker called Jesus, can be quite interesting. Not only you have a co-worker called Jesus, if in your KOTR you have a guy, a tiny talk called Jesus, it's also very interesting. You imagine one day, this tiny talk was running around, cannot be controlled, and making himself a fool, and then he says, Jesus, sit down. Quite interesting. So, Jesus, right? Just a pun on his name. Now, who was he? Now, this is a man with a strong commitment. Why? Because Paul said he was one of those of the circumcision. Now, you remember that the book of Colossians started with what? Epaphras brought the problems that Colossae church were facing. They was facing, the agnostic, the circumcision group, etc. And he was one of these, he belongs to one of these groups, people who advocate circumcision. It means they are the traditional way, hardline Jews. He was one of them. Now for him to come out from that circle, it's actually not easy. Not easy. Every time we come out from a certain circle, we come out from a certain comfort zone, we feel very discomfortable. I remember the first time I felt this way was many, many, many years ago. To be exact, 1974 end, right? 1974, to be by then 1975. 1975, very, very long ago. I was filled with the Spirit. And obviously, when you're filled with the Spirit, sometimes you are a bit not the same. You tend to be a bit high. So I was then like that. So one day, my pastor sent me a left foot fellowship. He said, Colin, when you're free, please come and visit us again. So what does that mean? I was kicked out of the church. So I got no church to go. So I came to the church upstairs. You know what happened? Saturday this time, this is the time. 3:30, we have our youth fellowship. And the youth fellowship will last to about 5 o'clock. Hey, I tell you, at this time, I have a withdrawal symptom. You know what is withdrawal symptom? I don't take drugs, but I have a withdrawal symptom. I felt very empty, All my friends, all my contemporaries were all somewhere in, Bartley Road there. And here I am. I was at home because the church meets on Sunday. I felt an emptiness, a vacuum, It is not easy to get out of a circle when you're so used to it. that you can have fellowship, you can have fun, you can have game, you can spend hours, you can overnight. What do we do overnight? Overnight we pray, but we eat watermelon. We just buy one big watermelon and a knife. And then in the middle of the night, after you pray, we pretend to be spiritual also. So we pray, and then in the middle of the night, we cut the watermelon and then we enjoy. Wow, it's really fun. Those days when you can think back, wow, it's really fun. But remember, suddenly you have no more of such fellowship. It's the emptiness. Not easy, Not easy. Here was a man. He came out and joined Paul because he knew Paul has a greater cause. See, such a man, strong commitment. Actually, together with him, Aristarchus, Mark, and Justus were the 3 Jews who were in Paul's team. And we need men and women with such commitment, right? Then F, we have another one. Epaphras, okay? Epaphras is chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. Epaphras, who is one of you, that means from Colossae, and a servant of Christ Jesus, sends greeting. He's always wrestling in prayer for you, that you may stand firm in all the will of God, matured and fully assured. I vouch for him that he is working hard for you and for those at Laodicea and Hierapolis. Now, who was this man? This man was a man with a single passion. They believe that he was the founder of the Colossae church. And he is also the pastor of Colossae church. He went to Rome to brief Paul about the challenges back in Colossae and seeking help from Paul, getting advice and how to deal with the agnostic group and the circumcision group, etc., etc. And so he went to Rome and seek advice. But then interestingly, while he was in Rome, he is a man who prayed. See, Paul said that he still what? He labored in prayer, right? He did not forget his congregation. Although he was far away from his congregation, he was still a man in prayer. I think he has good quality to be a pastor. I don't like to tell you this. Actually, I don't feel like I'm a good pastor. Really, okay? From the bottom of my heart, I don't think I'm a good pastor. I'm a good policeman and a good judge, So sometimes you look at the quality they have. He poured out himself. He wrestled in prayer for his congregation members. And then what he prayed? When he was agonizing in prayer, his single message or his single prayer to God was, his members will become what? Matured. People might become mature. In church, I don't like to say this. What the church needs matured people. The church really needs matured people. You remember the famous quotation of John F. Kennedy? I think when he was inaugurated, installed as the President of the United States of America, he made this very famous quotation, right? Ask not the nation can do for you. Ask what you can do for the nation. Now, this quote is not original. He actually copied somewhere. Don't know who. Right? A lot of times they copy one another one. It's okay. Don't get too excited. That's why they call copyright. Means you copy right, don't copy wrongly. That's why it's called copyright. Don't anyhow copy. Okay? So in church, to have mature Christian, perhaps the same slogan goes, ask not what church, ask not what Petra can do for you. Ask what you can do for Petra. Then we have mature Christian. If all the time we are still crying out, I want this, I want that, then very likely these are signs, evidences that we are not mature yet. Is it not true? Imagine you are raising up a family. When your children are young, right? They stretch out their hand and say, Mommy, I need this. Daddy, I need this. Surprising? Not surprising. Reasonable? Reasonable. They're still young. Let's say when they reach, a majority, reach 21 years old, and still say, Mommy, I need this. Daddy, I need this. Never mind. Come 31 years old. Mommy, I still need this. And Daddy, I need more of this. You think he's matured? No. By then, this person, this son, or this daughter should be contributing, not asking. If we're still asking, something is not right. So what is maturity? Maturity. Maturity is when you learn to give, not keep on asking. Asking is a sign of immaturity, right? So Epaphras was praying that his congregation member, they will become mature. And I can tell you this, today the church needs a lot of matured congregational members. I'm not saying that you all are not matured, No, don't get me wrong, right? Number G. Luke 4:14. Luke, the Bible describes him thus. Paul described him. He said, our dear friend Luke, the doctor. And, okay, actually I can stop here. No need to talk about Demas. I'll tell you Demas later. Our dear friend Luke, the doctor. Now see, among Paul's ministry team, Paul is no dummy, Don't think Paul is a dummy, okay? Paul is very smart, okay? Because during the first missionary journey trip, he fell sick and was really sick. And so during the second trip, he added a doctor inside. Okay? So doctors are valuable. Okay? Because if you cannot preach, at least you can give Panadols. So he added this guy, Luke. And Luke is a what? He's a talented man. So he has specialized talent. Now, although in the Bible we don't hear too much about doctors, there are no mention about many doctors, because God is a healer. What? So actually, as a doctor in the Bible, bo business because God heals, So doctors are very few. So Luke has specialized training, and he added a new dimension into the ministry of Paul. Now, I think every time when we have a specialized person, bear in mind, whether a person has this skill or in a secular skill perhaps, the person can add new dimension, new flavor into the ministry. And Luke was such a person. And by the way, Luke was not just partners, collaborers of Paul. He himself, like Mark, he wrote 2 books of the New Testament. He wrote the book of what? The Gospel of Luke. He wrote the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostle. And in the book of Acts of the Apostle, when he wrote the book of, let's say, come back to the book of Gospel of Luke, you notice that you read the book Gospel of Luke and you read the other Gospel, you can sense, the doctor's flavor coming out. Now, when he described the healing, his description about healing is much more detailed than the other Gospel writer. So you see, his specialty came out, and he wrote the Acts of the Apostle. When you read chapter 16 of Acts, you read the we section, right? The front part, Paul always talk about I. Or he write it is I. But come to chapter 16, there is a we section. We. Who are the we? The we is Luke is included in the we. The we, and so Paul had this guy called Luke. And imagine, when Luke sit down with Mark and Paul sat down together, how many New Testament books they have written? 17. Okay, New Testament 27. Among the 3 of them, 17. Not bad, So you see, this is a very powerful team, right? Very, very powerful team. Now we come to this guy. After Luke is Demas. Okay. Who was Demas? Well, Colossians 4:14, the second part says, and Demas sends greetings. Now, you see, when you come to Demas, Paul never gave him any title. Not good friend, beloved brother, nothing. Just Demas. very plain. Is there a reason? Maybe. Why Demas? Well, Onesimus, John Mark were two with a past. They were given second chance. They came back. They made good. But Demas is the opposite. Up to this point, when Paul wrote Colossae, Demas was okay. But perhaps Paul saw certain signs, maybe certain 蛛丝马迹, some of the little sign here and there, that Demas perhaps his position, his faith has begun to be waver. Now here is a man with a set future. I say set future. Why? Because Demas is the only one of Paul's co-workers who did not receive a special mention, right? Whether it's a dear friend, faithful, etc., or a beloved. And he would actually desert Paul and fear soon. Because in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10, it says this. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10, Paul wrote the final set words on Demas. He said, Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. So by 2 Timothy, Demas has gone away to Thessalonica, and he has departed from Paul. So he was a man with a set future. While Onesimus and Mark are the people who, although they failed, they came back. But not Demas. Well, what is good due day? We really don't know. We cannot guarantee that it will be good forever and ever. Can we prevent it? We don't know. Even Jesus has a Judas. Right? For Paul to have a Demas, it's not surprising at all. Many people could not accept the fact that Paul has a Judas. Jesus has a Judas. Okay, let me quickly come to this second last person, Nympha. Colossians 4:15 to 18. See, give my greetings to the brothers at Laodicea and to Nympha and the church in her house. Now, in the other version, it's in the masculine, his house, right? Nymphas. Now, I suppose the translator, after all their research, later they found that this name could well be a feminine name, That means that's why they now translated it as feminine, her house. She has a church in her house. After this letter has been read to you, see that it is also read in the church of Laodiceans, and that you in turn read the letters from Laodicea. Now, here was a woman with an open heart and open her home. It's not easy to open your house, right? You know how hard for LG department, like the life group department, to find people to. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. Please don't. Please, really, please don't. But after you heard it, please open your house. It's not easy to open your house. I've experienced. Many years ago, I open it only monthly. Okay, I have a monthly meeting with leaders, and at one time I have something like 40, 50 leaders coming to my house. And thank goodness that time my hall, plus the staircase, can sit 40, 50. So I have to buy about 50 chairs, and I have 6 fans. No more aircon, right? No, 6 fans. And then I have to prepare. After you come, you have to feed them, all right? So I feed them bihun, feed them chicken wings, fish balls. And then I taught my maid how to cook. Then my wife walked into the kitchen, she said, I faint already. Then she walked out. Then she faint already, I fainted. But she's a good woman. She prayed, she prayed. I do the cooking. So from afternoon, we start to prepare. Then at night, the people came. Wow, good. Wow, 40, 50 of them. After we had meeting, discuss about the ministry, blah, blah, blah. Then we had our feast. And after our feast, bye, Pastor. But still left with 50 chairs. 6 fans, and a dirty floor. And a lot of plates, rubbish. and it's already 10 plus 11 o'clock. So my maid, bo pian, she took my salary. Bo pian, no? Well, my wife said, Colin, you help yourself. So two of us carry the fan. You know, it's not easy. Now, I'm not blaming people if they have reservation. I'm not. But here I'm saying that here was a woman who opened her house. And perhaps for the rest of us who are attending LGs, let me give you a piece of advice, right? When we go to somebody's house, please remember to help them to tidy up. Please help them to make it easier so that people will find it more pleasant, easier to open their house so that we can help one another. These are all very real, very practical things. And here was this nympha. Because before the 3rd century AD, there is no proper church building. There wasn't a proper church building. They were all met in house churches. And so Nympha's house was one of those house churches. Right? And she became a model for believers meeting in small fellowship groups, just like our LG. And as they meet together, they receive instruction, and then they will connect with the larger congregation. I think that's a good model. So our small group in Petra can extend these important ideas too, right? To have more LGs, to have more people opening their homes, right? Rather than just on maybe Zoom. Now, because of this COVID, we tend to now rely on Zoom. I'm not saying that Zoom is no good, right? But nothing can replace face-to-face meetings. But someone must be willing to open the house. If you volunteer, come and see me afterwards. Then the last person, and then we close. Archippus, verses 17 and 18. He's an unknown person, and there is a phrase about him that's very interesting. Very interesting, The Bible says this about him. Tell Archippus, see to it that you complete the work you have received in the Lord. What statement was that? See to it that you complete the work you have received in the Lord. That means, in short, Archippus was not doing what he had received. His calling, his work. He had stopped. So Paul here reminded this gentleman. Well, here is a man with a ministry, and for whatever reason, he has perhaps stopped. And Paul is reminding him about his calling and also his ministry. And Paul is reminding him that ultimately he's a servant of the Lord. He's a servant of the Lord, not of man. Right? We are servants of the Lord, not of man. So see to it that we complete the ministry and the calling of the Lord. But let me also add this. To complete the calling and complete the work of the Lord, can mean different things, right? So what is the definition and the interpretation? You have to seek the Lord and ask the Lord to give you that clarity. The clarity. Sometimes we may think that, you are in this position, you are in that, God called you here. Not necessary. Not necessary. We may not be able to decide for other people. Each one of us have to really seek the Lord and ask the Lord to help us, right? To be very clear about this. And actually, Archippus is in short saying this. Well, he is a misfit. He was a misfit. And I know of one life example. This person was a minister in a certain church. One day he read this verse. The verse struck him like a thunderbolt. He woke up from after reading it, and he wrote a book. Okay? He wrote a book based on this verse, Archippus. And it was such insightful because please remind him of his calling. What is our calling? I think it's very important, right? What is our calling? And I hope that today, as we very quickly scan through and survey through all these men and women that Paul has assembled as a team, we can learn something from them that will help us in our ministry, will help Petra. That if Christ is preeminent in our lives, then the people who serve alongside us, the type of ministry, etc., will reflect the preeminence. That ultimately, God will receive the glory, not us. not us. Right? God received the glory.